nor boastful nor jealous, but love rejoices in the truth.
The joy of love. Welcome to this morning's Chatecchesis. Father Eamonn with you here at Radio Maria Ireland, to which you're listening on this Thursday, the 19th of August. Nice to have your company as always. Shout out to everybody and wave on Facebook and YouTube as well. Thank you for your company. Do drop a comment. It's nice to see people listen back or watch back a little bit later and drop a little comment in there. Thanks very much for that. A few regulars there, Eileen and Christine, and there's some regular names featured there as viewers, so thank you. And do like, share, do follow and subscribe, all of those things on our social media. I was actually curious, I was asking Sarah yesterday, I don't know what the story is, if there's any experts out there on Matters Facebook, that our number of followers is sort of dwindling a little. And we've been doing a lot of boosting. We lapsed for a small little bit there, but do a lot of boosting on Facebook over the past year or so, and just noticing a gradual increase in followers all the while, and all of a sudden it's just been reversed. I don't know if it's a Facebook policy, is it a policy in general? I was just throwing out questions. Have we exhausted all the possibilities on Facebook? I don't know. It's just a curious thing. I mean, I was hoping that trend would continue. The more we boost and the more we share and the more we participate in it, you'd think there'd be a stronger internet presence rather than a weakening one. I don't actually know. I'm not an expert in these things, but just an observation. It is curious because, we're throwing money at Facebook there to advertise a bit and get the word out, and you'd imagine there'd be some little bit of traction from some direction somewhere. So I really don't know. Anyway, what of it? We shall persevere nonetheless and keep scattering the seeds and keep putting it all out there for everyone to participate still and tune in if the Holy Spirit indeed directs you in this direction. So anything you can do to help, always very much appreciated. Now the numbers as always 089 467 2000. If you want to text and WhatsApp us here, please do get in touch. Plus 353 again if you're in the north or outside of Ireland, 89467 2000. You can email us here at info@radiomaria.ie, and you can also call us up. Mary Kate is on the phone there. We'll answer 014 123456 plus 353 1412345 Sarah busy there doing a new proof of our bookmark. We have a nice little colourful new bookmark, same information more or less. What we've added in, the way these things need to get edited when you're printing, going from one print to another, we've added in the IBAN for our Sterling account. Just earlier this year, I think, John kindly set up a Sterling account for a donation account. And we've got some wonderful listeners in the north and in the UK who are very happy to help us and contribute and allow us to grow. So we have an IBAN number now for a Sterling account to which you can connect in, hopefully, and make a contribution if you so wish as well, if sterling is the issue. Just helps to save on the commission fees and so on with converting from one currency to the other. So no harm at all. So that's the two IBAN numbers now will be on our latest edition of the bookmark, the Euro one and the Sterling one as well. So these things all need to, these are the little details, the small stuff that needs to be attended to, the way when you're trying to run a business, trying to get organised and trying to get things sorted. Mary Kate, of course, is taking our leave of us tomorrow, and sad to see Mary Kate go, but she's going on to head on and study nursing. Joe has already taken his leave. I was gone on to do some trainee accounting. But it's good to have Andrew is here. He's stepped into the breach to help cover that as well. And so it means we're in an interesting situation now with changeability in regard to our staff and our various needs. What we're just chatting with Aidan, what we really would love is more volunteers to come in now that things have eased a little bit. That if you're somebody who's good and handy, let's say, on a computer or a good telephone manner and understands the radio and is familiar with what we're about, just to volunteer for an hour during the week, if we have sufficient volunteers throughout the week to come along. Mentioned it yesterday in Drimnagh. Obviously, it helps if a person is local. But like that, Thomas Roach is great. He comes up from Carlow there at the weekend. So we have specific needs or specific times of the day when things are particularly busy, and just to have a presence to man the telephone. Sometimes there can be 3 or 4 phone calls coming in at the same time, and it just means we would hate to drop or miss a phone call. It happens, unfortunately. Just not everyone is capable of being present to the phone at the same time. And there are some wonderful listeners who like to ring us every day and like to have a little chat. And again, we like to accommodate that insofar as we can, but it's a busy happening place, and it's not easy to spend time on the phone. And we're so conscious. Yesterday, indeed, the ladies were struck very much by, a lady who's really suffering from loneliness. And we're just mindful that's the case for many too. And again, we're happy to be of service like that and of spiritual support to you. But it's just the time and the resources to be able to attend to that, and all of the other things that go with running a radio station. It's not always easy. So it certainly helps when we have a volunteer or two who's capable and has discretion too. That's an important element when you're dealing with the general public, let's say. It's important to be very discreet and very kind and well disposed and so on. And maybe there's a retired person who has such skills and is open to that idea of maybe trying it and seeing. Maybe it's something to consider. 014-123456. Give us a call here, and maybe it's something that might suit you of a morning or an afternoon for an hour or two, perhaps. So the needs are there for us all the time. We simply don't have the finances really to employ people the way we'd like to. Again, we're still only, I know what the best description is for it. We're not lurching along, but sort of very dependent on divine providence from one month to the next. And we're not strong enough yet in terms of financial base. We're just about making ends meet. And so there's just we don't have a solid enough base to say, look, we can employ here or employ there. And we do. I mean, I like the idea certainly of employing young people, especially. I think it's a great investment in their faith and a wholesome working environment here, and certainly good formation for them. So the likes of Brendan and Alana, who've worked here, and Jo now as well, and Mary Kate, as she's taking her leave too. What great formation to receive here. I think a tremendous investment in their goodness, and they take, please God, some of the formation they receive with them, and it'll hold and stand good to them going forward as well. So I see it as a tremendous way of using the resources that you kindly share with us. So just to thank you for that, and to realise this is, watch out, this will bear fruit into the future as well with wonderful young men and women of faith. So it's very, very encouraging. But like I say, unfortunately, we just don't have the depth or level of resources at hand to be a little more indiscriminate, let's say, and to bring as many as we love to bring in. It's just not possible. And there's something nice too about those who volunteer. And I've always mentioned this and always advocated this idea that charity, that is volunteering, giving of your time, that you won't get back, that's charity, because you're not getting repaid for it. But it brings tremendous blessings. All who volunteer for something, anything good, worthwhile, that brings great blessings. It brings life, it brings vitality, it brings an interest into things. And charity, again, it's that very age-old equation, again, my mathematical analogy, leads to faith. As I've always said, in schools I've endeavoured to have some kind of charitable activity going on with young people so that it'll be a stepping stone towards faith for them. And it just seems to me that the two go hand in hand. So that when we get involved in anything charitable, such as this ministry here, and again, all you can do promoting locally, that's a great charitable endeavour and mission. Likewise, it brings great fruit, and you just never know who's listening or who might trip across it, who might tune in at a given time, again, hear a line of sacred scripture, have some beautiful, inspiring music, maybe a word, a testimony, a prayer, and that's all the grace that's needed. So don't underestimate the capacity you have for being missionary, even if it is that your health or your situation makes it impossible or seemingly so. Again, think of St. Therese of Lisieux. Didn't step outside the convent, patroness now of the missions. Everyone has that little missionary task. So anything you can do indeed in the service of strengthening and building and helping us in our ministry here, I love Frank Duff's idea. Our Lady would consider it as done for herself and for her divine Son. And watch that you don't get repaid 100 times over. Just, let it happen. Put it to the test, if you will. But not in a selfish way, of course. St. John Eudes is our saint today. 1680 was around the time of St. Margaret Mary Alacoque and the devotion of the Sacred Heart. He's the founder of the Congregation of Jesus and Mary, Eudist, E-U-D-I-S-T, Eudist it says here. Not one that, I don't think there are any congregations St. John Eudes here in Ireland. Born of a farming family in Normandy, he was educated by the Jesuits at Caen, C-A-E-N. I'm never quite sure how to pronounce that. In 1623, he joined the French Oratorians, inspired by St. Philip Neri, and stayed with them for 20 years, being zealous in preaching, especially missions and the care of the sick during epidemics. Now, doesn't that sound familiar? Epidemics and pandemics. And yet these are the great saints who thrust themselves into that physical danger and yet show themselves, great zeal. By some good judges, he was reckoned as the preacher in the France of his day who most touched the hearts of his hearers. Interesting. Earlier in the, 1680, 17. Okay, I'm just trying to get my dates in my head. I think St. Louis-Marie de Montfort, he was ordained, of course, in the year 1700. He was an extraordinary missionary preacher too. So their lives wouldn't have overlapped, so it's interesting. In 1643, he founded his new congregation for the education of priests in seminaries. Foundations were made at Coutances, I've been there, up in the north of Italy, Lisieux, they were quite close, been to Lisieux too, and Caen too, and Rouen. These are all familiar to us actually because the ferries that travel across the water from France, the south of Ireland to France, would be landing in near these places. What are they? Le Havre, isn't it? What's the other one? Cherbourg. They're all up around the north of France there, and so you drive through or pass through any of these places. Coutances, a small little village even. St. John Eudes was also founded refuges for fallen women. After his death, his work prospered and the houses became much more numerous. Sounds like a bit of a Frank Duff of his own day too. In the field of devotion, he gave impetus to the spread of devotion to the Sacred Heart by providing a firm doctrinal basis for it. And this completed the revelations made to Margaret Mary Alacoque. And he died in Caen and was canonized in 1925. That's very short there. So again, I'm not so sure. It's a congregation or community that I'm not so sure exists in Ireland, not one that I've come across. But his name is familiar to us. St. John Eudes, pray for us. And may the Lord indeed raise up further John Eudes today among our own, that we might have saints to do the very same for us as well. So, we're hearing really terrible news, aren't we, from some countries around the world. Afghanistan, I've seen some images there of people trying to get on flights to get out of the country. The risk to life and limb and everything is so serious. So Bishop Alan McGuckian, who's the bishop, our own bishop of Rafo, asking us to pray for Afghanistan and that Ireland should play its part for forcibly displaced people like that. So while welcoming Ireland's intervention at the UN Security Council on the crisis in Afghanistan and appeal for safe and reliable humanitarian access for its people, together with the commitment of the government to accept 150 refugees under the Irish Refugee Protection Programme. Excuse me, at least that's a start. Bishop Alan McCarthy has urged that the processes involved be accelerated and that the acceptance of additional refugees in Ireland should be considered as a policy priority. Imagine our own situations. You go back to the famine. We know well here in Ireland how people left in their droves. 1 million, they say, emigrated from Ireland in the time of the famine in the late 1800s, and that 1 million starved to death as well. That Ireland was decimated by the famine in those dark times. 1847 was a terrible year of famine, and how many left the country. And we then, as refugees, scattered really to the wide world, and welcomed, in fact, in many places. England, Australia, North America, obviously, but other places too. And then surely we have a duty in kind to reciprocate the same welcome. And just like our own diaspora, I'm one of them myself, went to England and returned home. Many immigrants don't particularly want to stay abroad. They want to return home. And surely the same is quite likely to be true of any Afghan refugees that come to Ireland. It'll be such a different way of life for them. They surely want to return home when the circumstances change. Why would they not want to do so, to their language and their culture and their people? So it's the charitable thing. So the Bishop McCarthy says that Ireland, as one of the wealthier nations of the world, must do more for forcibly displaced people in terms of welcome and integration through state and community supports. Our hearts are deeply moved by the terrible, panicked scenes of people fleeing, but it should not take such scenes and circumstances to force governments to act. We should be willing and ready to act. So at the end of 2020, there were apparently 82.4 million forcibly displaced people worldwide. That's nations, really, of peoples being displaced. Yet 85% of these are being looked after in the least wealthy nations, with only 15% being accommodated in the wealthier countries in the world, including Ireland. So what does this say to us about solidarity and fraternity in our world today? Yes, it's very challenging. But these are our brothers and sisters. These are our fellow human beings. And if it was to us that this would happen again, we would hope that there would be those to help us. This unfolding crisis, the Bishop goes on, presents Ireland with another opportunity to demonstrate our commitment to the protection of human rights, including access to education for all, and to welcome the stranger among us. As Pope Francis reminds us, we are called to respond to such challenges with 4 actions: to welcome, to protect, to promote, and to integrate. Just a handy way, really, of saying how it is we need to open our doors. I ask people to pray for the safe protection of the people of Afghanistan and other war-torn regions of the world. In the interest of justice and peace, refugees should be welcomed and integrated in our communities. The values of our Irish faith tradition teach us that outreach, encounter, and authentic dialogue can bring the true peace that the world needs at this time. So now I have a relative actually who spent some time in Afghanistan serving with the military, peacekeeping forces there. Not an easy task by any means, fraught with danger. And he's home long since as well too, but just mindful of the great needs, the grave needs there as well. So there's a challenge put up to us, and what are we to do? So to welcome the stranger. It's one of the counsels in sacred scripture. You have the spiritual works of mercy and the material works of mercy. So one of those works of mercy is welcoming the stranger. We too are familiar with the idea of being strangers as well. So we have a song break lined up here. Sheila Donnelly, I presume this is. Sheila's in touch with us all the time. Nice little piece, Be Still for the Presence of the Lord. So again, please do get in touch with us, 089467200 by text, email info@radiomaria.ie, and by all means, do call us up, 014-123456. So back after this lovely piece of music, Be Still for the Presence of the Lord. Welcome back to Radio Maria, and lovely to have your company here. Be still for the presence of the Lord. So do please get in touch with us. 089467200 is the text and WhatsApp number. Many thanks to Breda. Breda sent in an email there. She was listening to the repeat of Chatecchesis there last night, and Breda's in. Plus, she asked to send on some bookmarks that she'll pass around neighbours and friends there. Well done, Breda. Thank you so much for that. Appreciate that very much indeed. Again, if it's something you'd like to consider doing, I was just suggesting that a simple little way of promoting and encouraging others to tune into Radio Maria, just to take a small little bundle of bookmarks, go around your own little neighbourhood community, or go to the one next door if you don't want to go to your own little street or road or avenue, and just drop a little bookmark in the door to people's houses. Again, you just never know who might pick it up and say, oh, Radio Maria, never heard of this. In fact, I've had a couple of experiences lately. I was sitting in the car and people passed by the promotion car of Radio Maria. It happened again, it was yesterday, the day before, and people are just walking past, and the little catchphrase tends to catch their attention, and the lady she read it. She must have been with somebody, but I heard her reading it out loud. Didn't see her because whatever, it was outside of my vision. But she just said, Radio Maria Ireland, sanctifying the airwaves. And I said, Oh. So just heard her say it at the catchphrase obviously caught her, and she spoke it out loud. I said, good on you. That's a little bit of advertising right there. So well done to the lady in Longford. I forget who it was now. I know it was Kitty Ross. Maybe it was somebody else. I think it was somebody else who gave us that catchphrase 3 or 4 years ago, sanctifying the airwaves. And we're using it ever since. And it really is. It's kind of incisive, isn't it? It sort of cuts in there a little bit and challenges a bit too. Marvellous. Thanks be to God for that. And again, just a small seed sown. Just who knows what might become of that little seed. So thanks again, Breda, and to anyone who might like to, again, just send in your details via email, info@radiomaria.ie, or by text 0894672000, and we'd love to hear from you. And again, if you'd like just a little bundle, the new bookmarks are just being they probably go to print today, I hope, and will be with us hopefully next week, that we'll be able to send them out before too long. We actually ran out of our last batch of bookmarks, which is great. I always say that to Sarah and anybody who's promoting. Get the stuff off the shelves. It shouldn't be on the shelves. It should be out there in people's hands or anywhere. Not so much on the shelves. But and thank you for the finances to help us to. It's not cheap to be printing these things, but again, it's more than just a printed advertisement. There's something of a faith exchange going on when we're distributing our literature. It's just a little quotation from Scripture, a little. Again, it's the that we're doing when we're printing literature. It's a faith exchange, and that's the more potent, certainly, element of the whole thing. Now, just if I can reflect for you on the missionary activity of the church, you know what? We're kind of talking about this topic all the while, really, because when I mentioned about promotion and that, really, what we're doing together is missionary. We were out in Drimnagh Parish there. Now we're hoping, please God, to go to Youghal Parish on the Strand, I think it is, in Youghal, way off in Tuesday. And I see that, please God, Middleton Parish is penciled in for a visit the following weekend too. So please God, all going well. Heading down to East Cork as part of our journey. As I say, Wexford is on the cards for September, and we're speaking of anyway, and had hopes to venture towards Kerry. And because we'd been to Omagh, we'd been to Newry, back down to Drimnagh, here in Dublin, East Cork, Wexford, please God, and if we hope certainly Kerry, that's the four corners of Ireland pretty well. No, we're not quite Donegal, let's say, but the west of Ireland, again, there's great scope for growth. And really, it's a missionary task that we're engaged in, encouraging people in the faith. You know how St. Paul wrote to his various recipients, trying to encourage them in the faith, to build them up in the faith. So when we come to a parish, I see that as our goal. And interestingly too, for priests in active ministry to come along and say, look, here's a tool, here's a gift, here's something that can be of great service to you in your ministry, because it's a 24/7 presence. You might have a captive audience for Holy Mass, maybe of a weekday morning, of a Sunday, but in theory we can extend that audience further on into the day and be a help to you in your ministry. And in the formation we hope is being received through Radio Maria, strengthen those who are active already in the local parish, and who knows, awaken a little return to faith for some in your parish too. So this is how we see our missionary work here. So the document echoes it for us, paragraph 28 of Ad Gentes. Since Christians have different gifts, they should collaborate in the work of the gospel, each according to his own ability, opportunity, charism, and ministry. So like that, some are good at one thing, some are good at another, and again, all of us together can certainly do great work. All who sow and reap, plant and water should be one, so that working together for the same end, in a free and orderly manner, they might together devote their powers to the building up of the church. So the radio will just be one instrument, in the hands, let's say, of the church. There's lots of other great instruments too, and we're happy to be a strong and vibrant and welcoming instrument in the life of the church. And I would hope a way of magnifying and enhancing local missionary work, that is local apostolic work of all kinds in parishes, and bringing that to the microphone as well. For this reason, the labours of those who preach the gospel and the assistance given by other Christians should be so organised and coordinated that all may be done in order in every sphere of missionary activity and cooperation. Since the responsibility of preaching the gospel throughout the world falls primarily on the body of bishops, then the Synod of Bishops, or the Permanent Commission of Bishops for the Universal Church, among matters of general importance, should pay special attention to the missionary activity, which is the greatest and holiest duty of the Church. So there's a synod, I think there's a gathering being organised here in the Archdiocese of Dublin, a synod I think being arranged here in Ireland too. And I would suggest that, yes, the management and maintenance of the Church is, I've always mentioned this, is important, but as the document is suggesting here, missionary activity is the greatest and holiest duty of the Church. And perhaps that should be given headline, prominent, and, top of the agenda attention, rather than the other. We see, the thing is, and I've come across this time and again, we can become so sort of introverted and say, well, there's not enough priests and we're closing down churches and it's all going down the plug hole anyway, and let's just move on somewhere else, and a kind of self-fulfilling prophecy if it's allowed to fester. Whereas when you meet a priest or a community where they're mission-minded, they're not looking at the glass half empty. They're looking at opportunities to fill up the rest of the glass, or fill up the empty bit. So there should be only one competent congregation for all missions and missionary activity, namely that of the propagation of the faith. I think that name has changed now, hasn't it, this side, Propaganda Fide, which would direct and coordinate missionary work and missionary cooperation throughout the world. The rights of the Eastern churches must, however, be safeguarded, so perhaps a different modus operandi in that case. However, it's this sort of centralized source in the Vatican to help guide and direct missionary work, and that makes sense. But naturally not without interfering with the charisms and gifts of the various missionary bodies and groups and organizations, religious and lay. Although the Holy Spirit arouses a missionary spirit in the Church in many ways, and indeed often anticipates the work of those whose task is to guide the life of the Church, nevertheless, this congregation should itself promote missionary vocations and spirituality, as also zeal and prayer for the missions, and it should furnish genuine and adequate information about them. It should raise up missionaries and distribute them according to the more urgent needs of certain regions. Interesting, in Ireland we've been so used to having so many priests. It's interesting to see, like yesterday meeting Father Dan from Vietnam, where the vocations are plentiful, and yet here he is in Ireland helping out. We have a number of African priests here as well, Indian priests too. Very interesting. And I suppose coming here they would get a very different flavour of the Church, where it's a very deep-rooted faith. English language, of course, too. But I wonder what they think. I wonder from a missionary perspective, and as, let's say, a foreigner coming in from a faith tradition where there's, it's a strong minority, what's their take on how things are here. So drawing up an organised plan of action, issuing directives and principles adapted to the work of evangelization, and giving the work impulse is the task of missionary, a central body there. It is its job to encourage and coordinate the effective collection of funds, which will be distributed according to need and utility, the size of the area, the numbers of believers and non-believers, undertakings and institutes, ministers and missionaries. So Propaganda Fide, I suppose the Pope, as various collections for Rome, seeks to support the neediest areas in relation to the mission of the Church. Of course, there'll always be a need there. It's, in a way, it's a bottomless pit of necessity, because, like Pope St. John Paul II said, every new generation that's born is a new continent to be conquered for Christ. And so the needs are always great. In collaboration with the Secretariat for the Promotion of Christian Unity, it will seek ways and means for attaining and organising fraternal cooperation and harmonious relationships with the missionary undertakings of other Christian communities, so that as far as possible the scandal of division might be removed. So interesting too. So it's not just a singular-minded approach. It is therefore necessary that this congregation should both be an instrument of administration and an organ of dynamic direction, that it should use scientific methods and instruments adapted to modern conditions, that it be guided by present-day research in theology, methodology, and pastoral mission work. In a way, that's like a manifesto, I suppose, for the office in Rome, Propaganda Fide, in terms of the preaching of the faith. In a manner and according to norms which should be laid down by the Pope, selected representatives of all those who are engaged in missionary work should have an active part in the direction of this congregation, and also a deliberative vote. That is, bishops from all over the world, after consultation with episcopal conferences, also the heads of institutes and pontifical agencies, these should all be called together at set times, and subject to the authority of the Pope, should exercise supreme control over all missionary work. Gosh, that's probably a whole bunch of other documentation on the desk of a bishop. If you think the bishops aren't doing enough or not paying attention to this, that, or the other, they probably have enough local issues to attend to, and then these directives coming from Rome for this, that, and the other thing too, and the priority of each one, and then how important missionary activity is. Oh man, that must be some task to put all that in place and together. There should be a permanent body of consultors and experts noted for their learning and experience attached to this congregation, whose task it will be to gather useful information as to the actual situation of various regions and as to the mental outlook of different groups, and so make scientifically based proposals for missionary work and cooperation. So all these institutes of sisters, regional missionary undertakings, and lay organisations, especially those which are international, should also be suitably represented. I know the Legion of Mary is represented at these things from time to time as well, given its international presence and the powerful work of mission that's going on through so many lay people all over the world. So very interesting. Father Michael O'Sullivan, of course, was in with us recently from Mission Ireland, and I am hoping that, please God, he will take up a regular slot for us here, a bit like Aid to the Church in Need, and bring us up to date on the Irish dimension. He himself, of course, is he fluent in Arabic and French and a few other languages, been on the missions for years, and a man of vast experience in United Arab Emirates, some of the Middle Eastern countries. Now there's a wealth of experience to bring to organising the missions. So please God, Father Michael will get in touch with him again. I know he was only very new to it from last year and getting into it, so hopefully he's settled in a bit more. So that's a conversation certainly keep continuing. At any rate, here on Radio Maria, it's a daily topic for us in a way, because the very work, as I say, of the radio is missionary in its endeavour. So the twofold idea, I suppose, of supporting people who are on the journey of faith and building up and strengthening that faith, but also trying to reach out to those who are far from the church. Remember I was saying about the 5,000 homes in Drimna. You say the same in your parish, anywhere else. Who is going to reach out to the people living there and invite them to the wedding banquet? Go out to the highways and byways, to the crossroads. Those who were invited rejected the invitation. Well, now let's head out to everywhere else. The wedding feast is ready. The Lord is calling. He's inviting you. Let's us be part of bringing that invitation to many more souls. Not to sit and lament what seems to be the demise of the church. No one who ever did that ever saw anything good come of it. That will fulfill itself if we sit on our hands. But when we're energized with a missionary endeavor, with zeal, our faith comes to life. We get back far more than we give when we're being missionary. Ask any member of the Legion of Mary or any good missionary. It doesn't, you'll see it. And we see it happening here at Radio Maria. And it's just lovely that we can help to animate you and give you zeal and passion for your faith, and see that the harvest is massive, the labourers are few, and every little help that you can give, even at the 11th hour, is welcome. So go out to the highways and byways, to the crossroads, invite them all to the waiting feast, and let them come on in where others have rejected and turned away from it. We can extend out that invitation. So like I say, our small little element of that work in the vineyard, tell others about Radio Maria, take some bookmarks, take some of the little program schedules, push them in the door of your neighbours, take 10, take 20 of them. Who knows, again, what good can come of that. So thanks for your time today. Thanks for listening in. Thanks for being part of Radio Maria Ireland. Always lovely to chat with you today, and great to see your messages and receive your messages as well. So thanks indeed for all, indeed, your participation as well. We bring you now to the Lord in prayer, and we ask the Lord to bless you and to accompany you today. Don't forget our lunchtime rosary, of course, at 12:30. Well, that's yesterday's sheet. I can't be shouting out of that. And keep an eye out for the programmes coming up onwards into the afternoon. Rosary Stories, of course, very popular at 7:15 this evening too. So thanks very much to Eva there. Andrew's at the mixing desk too. Aidan is flying in and out too. It's always a good sign when there's little beavering and buzzing around the place. There's activity afoot. So please stay with us, and we shall pray together our Angelus and our midday prayer.